Watch Rand Paul completely expose Markwayne Mullin right now. What you're about to witness is a textbook case of an appointed official completely falling apart under scrutiny. And one politician who refuses to play their game, Rand Paul, walks into this hearing and immediately comes out swinging, and he brought the receipts. We're talking about a brutal attack on a political opponent. 6 ribs broken, part of a lung removed, and Markwayne Mullin, an appointed administration official, justifies it. That's right. He thinks this is acceptable. No apology, no regret. Just bravado and excuses. Rand Paul doesn't blink. He exposes the pattern, the lack of contrition, and the sheer danger of putting someone like Mullin in charge of Homeland Security. This isn't politics as usual. This is a cover-up. That's the current climate. And Rand Paul, he pins the antagonist down and forces the truth out in real time. Morning, everyone. I entered the Senate the same year that Representative Gabby Giffords was targeted. I knew then that the state of political rhetoric was encouraging hostility. I think it's imperative now more than ever that the leaders in our country disavow attacks and lead by example. Through the years, I've personally been subjected multiple times to political aggression. I was in the right field batting cage when the unstable attacker unleashed nearly 200 rounds at our congressional baseball practice. I'll never forget Steve's detail valiantly trying to drag his body away as the assailant continued. Later that year, a politically motivated offender attacked me from behind in my yard. I was just straightening up from picking up a tree limb. I was wearing noise cancellation headphones. Never saw him coming. Running headlong down the hill, I was struck in the back. The force of the blow sent us through the air nearly 10 feet down the hill, until a shoulder impacted me as we hit the ground. 6 of my ribs were broken. 3 of the ribs were completely separated, such that for weeks the ends of the ribs would grind upon each other. My lung was damaged. For weeks I could inhale, but not have the rib strength to exhale. I developed double pneumonia. The pain was such that I could only sit up in bed by tying a rope to the foot of the bed and pulling myself up. But even then, the pain was that of 1,000 knives. Over the year of recovery, I began to cough up fluid. I underwent removal of part of my lung. Complications led to an infection in the space between my lung and chest wall. I spent a week in the hospital having the infection washed out every 6 hours through a chest tube. Recently, Senator Mullin, if you have time to listen, you were confronted by constituents that were angry because you voted against my amendment to stop all funding for refugee welfare programs. Instead of explaining your vote to continue these welfare programs for refugees, you decided to transfer the blame. You told the media that I was a freaking snake, and that you completely understood why I had been attacked. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this brutal attack that caused me so much pain, and my family so much pain. I just wonder if someone who applauds attacks against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force. You might argue you were mad and upset about being confronted by your constituents. But Senator Mullin, your constituents are justifiably upset with you. By now, most of America knows that the foreign welfare fraud in Minnesota stole over $9 billion. But instead of defending your vote to continue, the vote to continue these refugee welfare programs, you chose to lash out at me. You went on to brag that you had already told me to my face that you completely understood and approved of the attack. Well, that's a lie. You got a chance today. You can either continue to lie, or you can correct the record. You have never had the courage to look me in the eye and tell me that the attack was justified. So today, you'll have your chance. Today, I'll give you that chance to clear the record. Tell it to my face. If that's what you believe, tell it to me today. Tell the world why you believe I deserve to be attacked from behind. Have 6 ribs broken and a damaged lung. Tell me to my face why you think I deserved it. And while you're at it, explain to the American public why they should trust a man with anger issues to set the proper example for immigration and border agents. Explain to the American public how a man who has no regrets about brawling in a Senate committee can set a proper example for over 250,000 men and women who work at the Department of Homeland Security. Senator Peters, you're recognized for your opening comment. Allow me to explain this for you. Mullin walks into that hearing thinking he can just charm his way out of moral responsibility. That's an appointed official's playbook. Dodge, deflect, and smile, while defending the indefensible. But Rand Paul doesn't play their game. From the moment he starts, he pins Mullin down with facts, dates, and consequences. He lays out the attack: 6 ribs broken, part of a lung removed, 2 months of excruciating recovery, and asks the hard questions. Do you think defending this kind of aggression is acceptable for someone who will lead thousands of men and women in law enforcement? Mullin's response: evasive, weak, hiding behind understanding, rather than admitting wrongdoing? That's not a defense. That's a deflection. This gets much worse. Rand Paul doesn't just let the moral argument slide. He ties it directly to leadership and public trust. He points out the sheer lack of self-awareness in Mullin's attitude. This isn't just about one brutal incident. It's about the pattern of justifying aggression, the thrill of physical intimidation, and the cultural normalization of attacks among appointed officials. Mullin attempts to pivot, tries to make it about character assassination against himself, but Rand Paul brings it back to reality. You don't get to defend an attack and call it understanding. The American people are watching, and they deserve clarity, not doublespeak. Rand Paul makes sure they get it. Pay attention now. Mullin starts boasting about jumping over desks, biting, even referring to historical dueling as justification. He's almost proud of it, and this is supposed to be a lawmaker, someone entrusted with Homeland Security. That's the current climate. A culture of aggression. A mindset where physical intimidation is an acceptable political strategy. Rand Paul doesn't flinch. He lays out the consequences, exposing not just moral failure but institutional risk. When you place someone with anger issues and a pattern of condoning aggression in a position of authority over law enforcement, you are jeopardizing the very public they are meant to protect. Rand Paul makes that crystal clear. We need to examine this further. The beauty of this hearing is how methodical Rand Paul is. He doesn't rant. He doesn't get lost in theatrics. He presents the evidence, forces Mullin to confront his own words, and demonstrates the pattern of defending attacks. Every time Mullin tries to evade or distract, talking about historical precedent, theoretical duels, or character assassination, Rand Paul reels it back in with precision. He makes Mullin's bravado look absurd and dangerous. That's the hallmark of a leader in this context. Calm, strategic, relentless. He exposes an appointed official caught red-handed, protecting a toxic culture of aggression and intimidation. Consider this crucial angle. Rand Paul doesn't let the historical deflection obscure the present danger. Mullin references caning, dueling, jumping over desks, even biting, but Rand Paul continuously frames it in terms of real-world consequences. He forces Mullin to answer. Do you truly believe political aggression is acceptable? Mullin tries to claim nuance. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the tape and the testimony show a clear pattern of approval. Rand Paul uses this to illuminate the broader problem. If someone with this mindset leads agencies, it isn't just dangerous, it's reckless, and the American people need to see it. Notice this stark difference. Mullin's bravado is juxtaposed against Rand Paul's methodical, fact-driven dismantling of the narrative. Paul brings up every interview, every remark, every understanding Mullin made about the attack, highlighting the difference between acknowledging events and endorsing aggression. This is precision politics. This is a senator bringing receipts and exposing the antagonist in real time. The contrast is stark. Mullin's erratic, boastful energy meets Paul's calm, structured logic, and the results are damning. Mullin completely fell apart under scrutiny. Rand Paul forced the truth out. A top official defended an attack. No apology, no accountability, no moral compass, just excuses and aggression. Let us look deeper now. Beyond exposing the personal moral failure, Rand Paul ties this to institutional responsibility. He highlights how leadership sets the tone for law enforcement. If the head of Homeland Security condones aggression, that ideology trickles down. Mullin's understanding and his later bragging about fights isn't theoretical, it's a blueprint for how he expects disputes to be handled, even within federal agencies. Rand Paul calls it out repeatedly and exposes the danger inherent in elevating someone with this mindset to power. That's accountability. That's holding power to standards. And it's exactly what viewers need to see: the human consequences of a morally bankrupt appointee. Watch this final moment. Rand Paul also exposes the absurdity of Mullin's excuses. He references the historical dueling and caning as if it somehow justifies today's attacks. Paul doesn't let that fly. He contextualizes it, showing that historical precedent does not make attacks acceptable now, and that this bragging about aggression is exactly the behavior we should fear from appointed officials. This is a cover-up, folks. Mullin wants to normalize aggression, wants to frame it as character or tradition, and Rand Paul methodically tears it down. The logic, the moral clarity, the relentless fact-checking, that's leadership in a Senate hearing. Mullin's pattern of evasive answers, his approval of aggression, and his complete lack of self-awareness aren't anomalies. They're a reflection of the larger political establishment culture. Rand Paul exposes that culture in real time. The no-regrets statement, the boasting about fighting, the historical deflection, all of it comes crashing down under Rand Paul's scrutiny. That's why this hearing is so explosive. Mullin's moral bankruptcy is laid bare, and Paul's leadership is amplified. The American public gets to see exactly what top officials are capable of when left unchecked, and the consequences for public safety and trust are chilling. Saying, "Let us unpack this for the viewers one final time." This exchange is more than just a political squabble. It's a case study in accountability, a demonstration of the risks of putting unchecked aggression in positions of power, and a vivid example of what happens when a senator like Rand Paul refuses to let an antagonist hide. Every deflection Mullin attempts, from understanding aggression to dueling history, is methodically countered. The pattern is clear. The moral failure is undeniable. The danger to institutional integrity is unmistakable. And Rand Paul makes sure that the record reflects it all. That is exactly what expert political commentary celebrates: exposing wrongdoing, amplifying accountability, and shining a light on the truth the establishment would rather hide. If you want more breakdowns like this, where powerful officials get held accountable, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about Markwayne Mullin and whether he should resign after this explosive hearing.